The house had been stood empty for quite some time. We saw the estate agent and sort of said, we really love it. And we sort of said, would you live here? I don't think he lied to us, but he said, well, it's the kind of estate where you would probably see, in summer, you'd probably see kids running around in nappies.
Where I work, people say, oh, where do you live? And I'll say, Bolsover. Oh, that's got a castle, it's really beautiful. And they say, where do you live then? And everyone's heard at Model, and they're like, oh.
I did think about moving about 18 months ago. And then I thought to myself, well, why? Because there is nowhere else like this.
Model Village was to give decent accommodation to working class communities. And Bainbridge, a Sheffield industrialist whose idea it was, he was director of the Bolsover Colliery Company. He was a Methodist, and so his Methodist beliefs were quite enlightened. He was liberal, non-conformist, and views about doing good within society if he could actually do it.
Right, start at the beginning. I was technically homeless on the council homeless register when I was offered this house. My first thoughts were, oh my God, it's the Model.
I grew up here. I moved off here when I was 16. Growing up round here were quite good because, obviously there's lots of greenery. We used to go out making dens and things like that.
We were born in Birmingham. We've moved into lots of different places.
Yeah. I moved to Bolsover 5 years ago now. I moved here because I got a job in Derbyshire. And I like history. I like quirky old buildings.
It's quite an English concept, and they tended to go for a sort of an English cottagey style, which these are. When you come along the bottom road and just look towards the green, with the beautiful lime trees and these cottages in this very spacious green as well. I mean, it's not mean at all, is it? It's actually done on a very generous scale. And then if you think about all the facilities, the other buildings that they had for the community, and things like a cooperative piggery, and surrounded by allotments that every miner and his family would maintain. I mean, could grow their own food. I mean, it's a great concept. Is New Bolsover.
There's something warming about red brick. There's something warming about the design, how it opens up onto a communal green. The paths intersect across it. Everything is there to pull the community together.
It's very belonging to the community as well because it's in the middle of all the houses. It's not like it's a kids' park over the road or a playing field. It's very much the feeling of belonging to the houses.
Where we've lived before, there wasn't any parks. We was always sat in the house and playing board games, whereas we can still do that now, but we can also go in the park. It's there's loads of trees, but it's very boggy.
Don't cut the spot now. We like it.
The pub were a sort of central focus because all your grown-ups went to the pub, and then they sort of organised different activities like summer fetes and things like that, and that sort of was the whole hub of the community.
About a year ago the pub closed, which I think was a real shame, because that was kind of the last remaining social side of this community. A pub is a massive part of any community, and we just don't have any of those things anymore, and I think that's a real tragedy.
I think that was the total demise of a community which was like hanging by threads already.
I'm convinced that you could probably time it to the pit closure, and that's when the decline started. When it first happened, it must have been terrible. It must have absolutely tore communities apart, really. You know, you take away people's hope and their belief and their reason to get out of bed in the morning. You know, it's the next stop is looking at ways to make a few quid that's probably not going to be legal above board, and then on and on we go.
It's always sort of had a reputation, but the people who lived here weren't sort of bothered about that reputation because everyone was sort of quite a close-knit community. But as as years have gone on, as I say, everyone sort of lives in their own little isolated bubble and does their own thing. And then obviously that sense of community is gone and people just don't seem to take a pride in anything anymore.
It's interesting at the present time, there are quite a few boarded up ones, so there's obviously nobody in those. And we've got more boarded up ones now than we've had ever, I think. And whether it's a result of the bedroom tax, because if you've got 3 or 4 bedrooms, and as I said earlier, the living accommodation is fairly small on the ground floor. So if it's a couple with, one baby, then you've got the bedroom tax to pay as well. So that could be the reason why there are so many boarded up at the present time.
Out of the 194 properties on the estate, we've actually had access to 101. We've completed surveys in 90 in total. I think we've done another 3 this afternoon in some voids.
You can't explain to people how cold these houses are in winter. It's ridiculous. You can have your thermostat set at 20 or even 18 and the central heating will be constantly going because it never actually reaches that temperature that you've set it to.
So they'll be insulated, but on some of those floors we're looking at the possibility of considering taking the suspended floor out permanently.
There's been lots of false promises, that have never come to fruition in the past. So people just, think, oh yeah, again. They've been waiting like 20 odd years to have new windows and things like that. They've been let down for so long, they need to see some evidence that things are going to change before they start sort of engaging with the process.
Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it from a heating point of view, from a living point of view, even though I know it is going to be a huge upheaval. It shouldn't be taken lightly, the amount of stress that it is going to cause people. But I think in the long run, it really is going to be worth it.
This is us, and we are on a journey. We've started in a not such a great place, and then we're hoping that we're going to get to a better place. If you want to be a part of it, then that's brilliant, because you can help get the message out to more people, and then this little room will no longer be big enough, and we'll have to then move across the Bainbridge.
I think that sadly we may not live in a world that is as community focused as it once was. But I think that you've got all the building blocks for a fantastic community.
Get on really well with my next door neighbours, that they're really good. But other than that, I don't particularly know anyone on here anymore. And then that's why we went to the community meeting, because that seems like a good place to start, trying to sort of rebuild, just giving people a sense of pride where they live.
Friends of New Bolsover is our community group. It was set up in October last year.
For the creation of that group, I think it represents that things are going to change. It does represent hope, and it does represent change, and it does represent the people of the estate in a favourable light.
It's opened up so many possibilities for me as a person, and I know for some of the other group as well. You don't realise how many people are isolated or feel isolated until something like this happens, and you start talking to people and you find out that they've been in a similar situation, and what we're doing is helping them too.
Deep down, everybody inside wants to be part of something. You know, whether you want to be British, whether you want to be Bolsover, whether you want to be New Bolsover, whether you just want to be part of your family, everybody wants to belong.
He was a pit deputy, and he said, well, I fly my pigeons because when I come home and I let these racing pigeons fly around, you can see them flying in great big groups around the valley, and they're taking the whole sort of landscape as they fly around. And you've got pigeons which are free outside in the open air. And he said it's lovely when you've been underground for 8 to 10 hours. You come up and you're outside, and you've got these pigeons flying out in this lovely sort of open landscape under this castle. And it's like a freedom, isn't it, really?